Welcome to Think Tank. I'm Steve Adubato. We're about to have a conversation about gun violence. It's respectful, it's civil, but the folks here have very different views on it. First, I'd like to introduce Brett Sabo, who is New Jersey chapter lead. Moms demand action for gun sense in America. Alejandro Roubian, who is in fact president and managing editor of New Jersey's Second Amendment Society. Good to have you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Okay, you were in the green room together right before, which is actually green, here at NJTV right before you came on. Mm-hmm. You wind up agreeing on any of these issues in the meantime?
While we were in the green room?
Yeah, like universal background checks. You agree now on that?
I don't know. We didn't talk about that.
You didn't talk about that. And you agree on the whole question of red flag laws are what?
Well, red flag laws were implemented that people would have their rights removed without any due process, just by sheer accusation from a loved one, a family member.
Is that how you define them?
That's exactly how it's defined by the law.
Hold on, one more second. I've read the law. I've read the legislation. It says we will take away your rights with no due process. Please show me that, because I've never seen that.
Your firearms are taken away from you prior to getting a trial or being charged with a crime. So by claiming you're going to commit a crime or you may commit a crime is very draconian, and it affects a lot of people.
And so a whole range of law enforcement professionals are supportive of that because they're concerned about guns getting in the hands of those who are dangerous and have mental health issues or should not have a gun. Is this the due process issue that your colleague describes, or the lack thereof?
There is plenty of due process built into the law. I think it's after 10 days, there's a hearing, and the whole point of red flag laws is that you get the gun away from the person that could be harming themselves or someone else. And in fact, in states that do have red flag laws, like in Connecticut, the gun suicide rate drops almost immediately. And so it's not about taking people's guns away.
But aren't you concerned? But are you in any way concerned about guns being taken away from those who are law-abiding citizens? Aren't you concerned on some level about that?
I'm concerned more about the potential danger that parents and teachers and law enforcement could have, that they can save other people, they can save their loved one, and then they can get the gun back after their hearing, or it's only for a year, then they can get their gun back.
This is the United States of America, where we're innocent until proven guilty. What Brett just stated makes you guilty until you're proven innocent. And most importantly, the people this is going to affect the most.
Are you charged with a crime?
You're having your rights stripped away from you. Your firearms are being taken away. You're being treated as if you were charged with a crime and convicted of a crime. A right delayed is a right denied, and by taking your guns away just for one day, without any due process, without being charged with a crime, without having any evidence of crime, just by sheer accusation, is a modern-day witch hunt.
Alejandro, let me ask you this. First 9 months of 2019, 21 deadly mass shootings across the country, total of 124 people killed. El Paso, Dayton, list goes on. Hopefully, as we do this program toward the end of October, there will not be another one anytime soon. Children. You don't need me to talk to you about the horrific school-related shootings. What's your solution?
Over 95% of these crimes that have occurred in gun-free zones. It's society's most cruelest experiment, which guarantees that criminals would have a defenseless group of people that they can attack. And that's why these areas are targeted by criminals and mentally insane.
Excuse me for interrupting. Do you believe that teachers should be armed?
The places that have armed teachers have shown no evidence of any type of backlash or any type of issues.
So you believe teachers should be armed?
I have firearm instructors that are competitive shooters that would like to be armed. There's principals, there's school administrators that would like to have them armed.
I'll ask you one more time, just looking for a yes or no. Do you believe teachers should be armed?
I believe making the teachers defenseless, making the schools defenseless, is what attracts this crime. After the 1990 Gun-Free School Zone Act was indoctrinated, that's when school shootings skyrocketed.
I'll take that as a yes. Go ahead.
There is no proof that mass shooters target gun-free zones. I think if more guns made us safer, we'd be the safest nation in the world.
Because?
Because I don't think more guns make us safer. I think the majority of mass shootings in this country are actually domestic violence shootings.
We'll go back to schools for a second. But if a teacher, if a principal, if someone in that school who was trained, right, certified to have a handgun, to have some kind of gun, are you saying that some of the horrific murders, those shootings, could not be limited on some level if someone had a gun?
I don't know. No, there was an armed guard in Parkland. There was an armed guard, I believe, in Columbine. Even sharpshooters only hit their target, I think, like 2% of the time or something. So just because someone is trained to use a gun does not mean that they're going to be effective in a mass shooting situation.
But can we agree that there's no one, quote, solution, but there are things that we can do to help minimize gun violence?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you this, Al, if I could. Do you agree that universal background checks, being discussed and debated, President Trump has said he's for it, he's against it. He's for it, he's against it. Not exactly sure as we tape this program where he is. Do you believe that universal background checks will help reduce gun violence?
Well, let me just go back to the Aurora shooter and the gun-free zone. He specifically drove past 2 other movie theaters 45 minutes out of his way because the movie theater he went to was a designated gun-free zone. That's why he went there. He passed 2 other movie theaters that allowed the people that went to the movies to carry guns. So to make the argument that they don't target gun-free zones is absurd. It's FBI statistics.
Background checks.
Background
checks. Good idea, right?
We have universal background checks in New Jersey, and it still doesn't stop the criminals.
Federally, across the country, we do not have universal background checks. Do you support the idea?
There's been no evidence of showing that universal background checks reduce crime. If that were the case, Camden, Newark, and Trenton, New Jersey would be gun-free.
So I have no choice,
utilities.
respectfully, but to take that as a no, because you said New Jersey has universal background checks. Then I asked you about the country because there are 49 other states, and then you immediately argued that they're not effective. So I'm going to argue that if you, my assumption is that if you were in Congress, you'd vote against it.
I would not support universal background checks because there's no evidence to prove that they work.
But wait a minute. You're not convinced that they will help, but they won't hurt. What's the downside?
Because there's no evidence to show that people are acquiring firearms through the lack of the universal background checks.
Is there any change that you would make in existing gun laws? Are there any changes that you would make on the state or the national level as it relates to gun laws? Because every item I've raised, every idea I've raised, you said, quote, it won't work. What change, if any, would you make?
In Parkland, this individual committed multiple felonies, yet he was never arrested. The fact of the matter is that Parkland occurred because the government failed to do their job. We have to enforce the laws that are in the books.
You would make no changes in existing laws.
We already have enough gun laws. They're not being enforced, so if we don't enforce the current laws...
Can't you give me a yes or a no?
I'm giving you an explanation of why...
No, but the answer is no. If you were in Congress and you have a lot of opinions, you would not try in any way to expand any existing, to increase any of the laws, to add any laws to reduce gun violence, because right now you believe it's an enforcement question of the laws we have. That's what I heard. Am I mischaracterizing it?
No, that's exactly what it is.
Go ahead.
H.R. 8 passed.
H.R. 8, explain to folks what it is.
H.R. 8 is the most comprehensive background check bill that's been in Washington in years. It passed with bipartisan support. It passed the House with bipartisan support.
Democrats and Republicans.
Yes, and it's been sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk for, I believe, like 200 days.
Because?
Because Mitch McConnell also answers to the gun lobby and the NRA leadership and not just his constituents.
Wait a minute, that's your opinion. Maybe just Mitch McConnell disagrees with it.
Well, then he should, but if there are other senators that do, then he should call it for a vote.
And let them vote. That's an interesting point. Would you be in favor of a vote, an up or down vote on this particular, is H.R. 8, if you will? Comprehensive universal background checks. Let people decide, Democrats, Republicans, people who get support from the NRA or not. Let them vote, right?
Mitch McConnell hasn't supported any gun legislation, including pro-gun legislation.
No, I asked you, would you want to see a vote on it?
If people want to vote on it, that's Mitch McConnell's agenda, but I wouldn't support the legislation.
Okay. Any agreement here?
Well, I think we can agree to the fact the state police has said that over the 700 shootings we have in New Jersey, that over 91% of them are occurred by the same people, recidivist offenders.
So what do you agree on then?
Well, why the fact is the government is not doing their job.
So we're going to agree that the government's not doing their job. That's your colleague's argument. And do you agree with that?
I believe that crime is an issue in New Jersey in these 5 specific cities, and I'm really happy that Governor Murphy, and maybe we can agree on this, that they've started this hospital-based initiative program to help get into those neighborhoods where the gang crime is, where the inner city violence is, and to help kind of help with the families, stop any kind of retaliation, get people the mental health help that they need. So the government is trying to help.
Mental health is a big piece of this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question before we
Yeah.
go. President Trump, give him a grade on gun violence.
D.
Give President Trump a grade on gun violence.
He's done a great job, and I'll give him an A.
An A and a D. Okay. Listen, I want to thank both of you for joining us on Think Tank for a spirited, but as always, respectful dialogue. Appreciate
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
it. This is Think Tank. I'm Steve Adubato. We'll be right back.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Russell Berry Foundation, PSC&G, ADP, the New Jersey Education Association, NJIT, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, and by Adler Aphasia Center. Promotional support provided by NJ.com and by New Jersey Family Magazine and NJFamily.com. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.